Welcome everybody to the very first energy reduction advisory recorded webinars. And today we are going to introduce you to two experts in the very thing that you are wanting to know more about, energy reduction. And I will hand it over to each of you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll start asking some questions, because I'm fast, quick, and in and out, okay? Because I know that teachers and head teachers and business managers of schools do not have time. So this is the speed dating version of asking a million questions in 10 seconds. Jason, welcome. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you very much. So I'm Jason Stoyle. I'm a business development manager for Amoresco. And Amoresco are energy efficiency specialists. We go out into properties like yourselves, like schools, and retrofit energy efficiency technologies to reduce your energy bill and reduce your carbon.
Okay, all right. And Ivor Tucker, you're going to tell us what you do.
So I'm the chief executive of a social enterprise called Hope Sustainability, and we work with schools to help, firstly, understand visibility of when and where schools are using energy. So you move from a once a month electricity bill and gas bill, which you pay because you have no choice, but all it tells you is how much you're being charged for, to understanding on a 24-hour a day real-time patterns of consumption, so that you can understand where you're using energy in the school. And off the back of that, we can provide recommendations and insights to reduce wastage and improve efficiencies. And also, a key part of what we're offering is linking the data with your education system, so that the school kids can get involved in understanding more about energy efficiency projects and sustainability concepts in general. And they can then start to make suggestions about how they think the school could help save energy. So it's an active engagement with both the education system and the sustainability improvements for the school.
Fantastic. Jason, tell us, what are the big projects that you've been working on regarding energy reduction?
So at the moment, I think the big ticket item has to be heat pumps. So more about reducing their carbon footprint and reducing the CO2 emissions from heating and taking gas out of the picture. So I think that is the major project at the moment. I think virtually 80% of our projects are involved in that, and it's anything from doing social housing blocks through to doing universities and councils. So there's a whole gamut of properties out there which need to take the gas out of the systems.
So, but would you just, if you're a school and you've been given this energy reduction funding, this is the first round of it, do you just go for a heat pump? Is that where you start?
Absolutely not. No. What you want to do is take a whole school approach. You want to look at it in the totality of it. And it's very important that you do that. The various technologies will interact with each other in different ways. And what you don't want to do is end up putting in, go back to a heat pump, a large heat pump now, which in 2 years' time is completely oversized because you've realized that you're leaking heat all over the place. And what you really should be doing is looking to insulate first of all, and then size your heat pumps accordingly. So no, it's very important that you don't just go, yes, this is the flavor of the moment, let's go for this, let's stick a heat pump in. The same thing can be done for LEDs. Don't put LEDs in now without looking at everything else first, because the number of LEDs you put in will impact on how much PV you can put on your roofs and how everything else works. So everything is interrelated.
Okay, all right. So Ivor, hang on, I'm going to ask you, because this is what I've been hearing. Head teachers have said to me, "Oh, but we've got a smart meter, so we know what our energy consumption is." So come on, give us the full goss on energy reduction monitoring and management.
Okay, so smart meters only give the school insights into total consumption. What it doesn't do is give visibility of where energy is being used in different parts of the school. So we have one school, for example, where we know exactly when and where they're using energy. And in most cases, our experience has been that schools are using over a third of their electricity when there's no one in the buildings, overnights, weekends, holidays. And so it's really important to understand that and then say, why are we using all that energy out of hours, and where can things be switched off? Because in 90% of the cases, it's various appliances or settings that are incorrectly done. And unless you have full visibility of the entirety of the school building, you can't actually isolate what areas need to be focused on first. So the first point is getting full visibility, which you can't get from a smart meter. You need a complete suite of sensors. The second point then is by getting understanding of when and where energy is being used, you're then in a position to make a much more intelligent and informed decision as to what you need to prioritize in terms of capital installation. So as Jason said, you could do LED lighting, you could do solar, you can do roofing, insulation, but unless you understand where energy is being used, you can't decide which one actually is the most important one to start first. And so you could be making a big investment in a capital project that actually doesn't significantly reduce your costs because it's not the area that's using most energy in the school. So that's why an ongoing monitoring capability is really important as the first step to make informed decisions for further decarbonization measures.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, once you have that visibility, not only that, the first thing we do is compare your school with other schools in the of a similar size, and we can benchmark those against each other and identify which schools are performing worse, which performing better. And again, that gives us a better idea of how you're using your energy.
Okay. All right. So I had some questions that were thrown at me from some head teachers, and they said, why is it important to take a whole school view of the project before we make investment decisions? Well, you just answered that question, to install things like LED lighting or solar photovoltaic panels. I mean, that's the one thing everybody says to me, oh, we want some of those panels. And you just think, well, surely you should know the reason. You know, I'm going to quickly butt in before we go in here. We are finding that with the Educate Global Award schools, those head teachers and teachers that have already have the foundational understanding of the climate education and the climate literacy and carbon literacy process, they are the ones that are coming at us with far better, robust thinking on their planning. And they're the ones that are saying, well, we want to be working on the energy monitoring process with the pupils running that and project managing that. Jason, where do you think the very first rung of the ladder is? What's the first step?
I think the first step is, as we've already said, to knowing what your energy is where you're using it, when you're using it, and understanding how you can reduce that. That's definitely the first thing to do, is get that data and bring that all in. You can even use your half-hourly data, which you'll get through the billing.
Yeah.
PV is an interesting one. PV is definitely the thing to do, but you have to understand that, especially in the UK, most sunshine we get is during the summer, and schools aren't open during the summer. So you're making the most money, you're generating the most electricity during the summer when you can't use it. So you've got to understand that beforehand. So how else can you do that? And there are things like batteries now, which are a lot more cost effective, and that will allow you to shift the PV generation to when you are using it. So it's not as simple as just putting the roofs on, PV on the roof. Yes, we certainly say that it's a great idea to do that, but you just got to understand what you're doing with that electricity.
Okay, Ivor, tell me, you've just done a project, a pilot project with the Bromley schools, and you found some very, very interesting anomalies through that energy monitoring and huge savings that were being lost just as a result of not looking at it intently. So just tell us more about that.
Yeah. So what we did in the pilot project in Bromley is that we installed a number of sensors in half a dozen primary schools. The council paid for that in the first instance. What we didn't have discovered afterwards, because it was the first time we did the project, was that we needed more sensors than the council was budgeting for. And so having visibility of parts of the school obviously is valid, but you actually need visibility of the whole school to make the most important insights. The second thing that's really important is that just providing access to a data platform without an active project management process doesn't actually achieve anything, because these pilot schools have had the data now for several months, and we've been monitoring patterns of consumption, and there's very little change. So even when you go into the school and say you need to walk around your school and during the holidays and make sure that every single appliance that's not needed is switched off, in other words, all the whiteboards, all the computers, suggesting that doesn't necessarily mean something's going to happen. So what we have discovered is that to make the most effect of the investment in the monitoring system, there has to be an active project management by an external party to the school, somebody like ourselves, to do all the heavy lifting. Because every school, the personnel are overworked, and while energy budgets are important and obviously an increasing part of the school costs, it's still never going to be the biggest or the most important expenditures in the school. And consequently, the people who are running the school have always got other things that have to happen. There are daily crises. So while there are plenty of good intentions, unless somebody is dedicated to making sure that the insight analysis is done on a regular basis and regular reports are provided to the school leadership team, the changes just don't happen. So that's really why it's a combination of the monitoring equipment plus the project management. But then most importantly, the head teacher and the SLT and the governors need to commit to implementing the project, because again, unless the SLT is behind the project, and particularly the head teacher, things don't happen, because so you can't just leave it in particular cases to a junior member of the staff to take care of things, because they don't have the clout or the ability to make things happen. So engagement by the head teacher is probably the most important part of it.
I agree with you on that one. It's key in everything. We've recently done we're busy piloting a diagnostic toolkit survey, Jason. Ivor knows about it, so that we can see the baseline of every single member of staff in a school, that the school can then, the leadership can then draft their climate education policy. And it's very interesting what's coming back. If we realized that we've been putting the cart before the horse. We needed the horse, then we needed that rider, which is the head teacher, and then you need the staff, and then the learners. Right, so here's a question that one of the head teachers came back with us, who says, this sounds like a lot of work, but our staff are very busy, Jason, and they don't have much time for new big projects. How much heavy lifting will your team do, and what would we be required to do?
I think that's a key question, and absolutely, these are very large projects, but they'll make a significant difference to your schools, your bills, and importantly, the welfare and comfort of your students and teachers. But they are big projects. But luckily, the vast majority of them can be carried out away from a pupil, away from the pupils, away from the everyday schools. So we can do it in plant rooms. We can do them at weekends, after school. The larger projects themselves will need to be done over the summer holidays or the Easter holidays. So there are ways of doing it, and we'll do everything for you. We will need, for doing the surveys, the initial look rounds, obviously somebody who's knowledgeable about the school can show us around. But once that's been done, then we will arrange to come outside of the school working day and do it on ourselves. So we are very self-sufficient from that side of things. Obviously, safety and security of the pupils is paramount importance, and all personnel are DBS checked and as a minimum. But it is very much a energy-related project. It's not a school-related project, and therefore we don't need that much input from yourselves.
Okay, Ivor, on that question there, what about involving the pupils in helping you project manage? Would that become a project for the kids?
Absolutely. And obviously it depends on the age range. The kids. So we're looking at both primary and secondary schools. I've actually just had a meeting before this call with an infant school. That one's probably a little bit more difficult, because for very young kids, clearly they don't have the capacity to do that. But certainly from key stages 2 and 3 particularly, we found that once you start to engage kids, they're all concerned about these issues and sustainability in general. And by empowering them and providing them with access to data, their creativity juices get flowing. And also what we are looking to do is to actually get the kids to sometimes police the processes and make sure that the staff actually comply with things. So there are all kinds of things that the schools can do to engage the kids. And certainly we see that as one of the most powerful parts of the project, that is not just energy efficiency in the school building itself, but it's engaging the kids to learn to understand things better. And most importantly, hopefully what they learn at school, they're going to take home and start making improvements in their home environment as well. So you have sort of the ripple effect. So it's not just the few hundred or a couple of thousand pupils at the school, but it's a much wider community impact, because you're upskilling everybody. And also there are opportunities in the medium term to get parents engaged, because the learning resources and the stuff that the kids are doing, there's no reason why the parents can't participate in some of that as well. So there are all kinds of opportunities for the schools to engage and have better relationships with the parents, particularly at secondary schools, where very often the parents are remote from the school's activities.
Okay,
I'd second that. I mean, just coming in on that, the pupils are amazing. They're our biggest critics and our largest advocates. They really do go for it. And even just having a an assembly first thing in the morning, the number of questions you get from them is mind-blowing, really. And they understand it. They understand the data, and they want to see the impact that we're having and the progress being made. So anything from a website where it shows how much you've reduced your energy spend, or how much the PV's producing at any one particular time, they lap it up. They just love playing on those numbers. So I think it's a really good tool for educating and engaging with the pupils.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really important is it's also cross-curricular, because it's not just physics or chemistry or biology, because it involves geography, it involves maths and computing, it involves D&T. Because one of the things that you could do in a school is, let's assume you've got your data, solar panels are one of the things that you need to be looking at, or LED lighting. The kids can get involved in doing site surveys and then working out and specifying how many solar panels need to be done on various different roofs, what are the technical constraints. So you can get kids in the computing class working out something about the power generation. You can have kids in the physics class understanding a bit better about the various different elements of consumption. You can have kids in on the biology classes looking at, and geography, looking at weather and the impact of outside weather on how energy is used in the school. So there are all kinds of cross-curricular things that link together, but using this as the kind of the basis. And it all comes back to having access to visibility of data, which makes something that is generally invisible more visible, more practical, and therefore easier to understand as far as the kids are concerned.
Now, one of the big ones was, this is question number 4. Jason, Ivor, this all sounds great, but where do we find the funds to implement a comprehensive decarbonisation plan, eh?
We're talking money now, and it's always the big question. There are obviously, at the moment, decarbonisation is the hot topic. There are lots of grants available, from the public sector decarbonisation schemes through to SALEX, through to general local council grants. So there is money available. You've just got to apply for it. And I think that's something which we are happy to do. So we're happy to help you apply for this money, and work out go through the various forms, etc., and work out exactly what you can do. So there is money available. It's not always easy to get hold of, and it's not always a short-term project. But I think it's like energy itself. It's not seen as a short-term quick fix. You are going to be looking at this for the next 2-3 years. So it is that kind of timescale, and there is money available to do that. The other way of doing it, obviously, is through looking at some sort of financing arrangement where we can guarantee how much you're going to save. So if we say you're going to save 50% of your energy every year, you can use that to put into a pot of money and use that to pay for the initial projects. So there are ways of doing it. It's just really understanding what you want to do. I think that's the key part, is understanding how you're going to get from where you are now to how you're going to get to zero carbon or reduce your energy there. So once you've got that study done and you know what you're doing, then the money is available. It just takes time to look at it and work out where you're going to get it from.
What about this funding that all the schools have received? This is why head teachers are now reaching out to us and asking us for assistance and advice.
Yeah, well, that money is a relatively small amount of money in the context of the capital costs for energy improvements in the building estate. So, from our perspective, the best way to invest that money in the first instance is to invest in the monitoring equipment to get visibility of consumption patterns. And off the back of that, just the savings alone that are identified in terms of inefficiencies should pay back the investment in the initial one-off cost of the monitoring equipment. And then the savings obviously are available in perpetuity for further investment into other projects, whether it be further capital equipment or learning resources for kids, or any combination of that. So EFE allocation from December is a relatively small amount of money in the context of the large capital projects. But coming back to the point that Jason was making, where there are grants available, in almost all cases, those grants are competitive, and increasingly SALEX and the other granting bodies are requiring evidence as part of the application. And so having the actual data of when and where you're consuming energy, and so that you know you've done an analysis and you can hand on heart say, we know that our application for X is better than something else, because you've got the evidence to prove that, is a strong part of an application, and increasingly schools that don't have access to that sort of evidence are probably going to lose out in future grant rounds.
Okay. Now, we were saying that with the package that we're going to be making available to all the schools in England, it's an overall package. It's overarching. It includes the energy monitoring. It includes the project management. And we've said that we would come in and we would provide all the teacher training for the year, that subscription to the Climate Education College, because, you know, Tony Cook is going to talk about green being lean and that. And all the schemes of work and the lessons as well involved in it. I want another question here. Why would your company, Jason, initially, why would your company be a suitable partner for us? And how do your costs compare to other companies doing similar work?
I think the easy answer is Ameresco is a specialist energy technology integrator. That's all we do. We don't do anything else. We're not connected to any supplier or any technology. Particularly, we are completely independent, and we just go out there to deliver best carbon savings, best reduction in energy. So that's we're not we're not encumbered with any other issues, and that makes us a great partner. How do costs compare with other companies doing similar work? I think it's all driven by market forces. We are cost competitive, and we can prove that through our various schemes where we go out and show that. The main issue is on the technology side of things, how you then install it, and that's when the big costs come in. And what we want to do is we want to work with you to show that the best cost-effective technology is not necessarily the cheapest. And it includes everything from looking at the upfront cost of it, the long-term operating costs going forward, and how long it's going to last. And you do get what you pay for, and particularly when you're looking at heat pumps and energy efficiency equipment. And if you look back at LEDs as a good example, many people jumped on the bandwagon 5-10 years ago when the LEDs first came out. They were wonderful, but now they're failing. Whilst the new technologies are significantly more efficient and have 25-30 year lifetimes. So it is about what you know, and that's what we do. We are those technology experts.
Why would we want to partner with Educate Global and Hope Sustain on an energy monitoring strategy?
Well, firstly, we're a social enterprise, so our sole purpose is to educate and engage kids and help schools improve not just their energy efficiency, but their overall education resources. And I think we're the only organization I've come across that links the energy efficiency measures with the education system. Secondly, because we're a social enterprise, our pricing structures are designed to allow us to make enough revenue to be able to continue as a business, but we're not looking to capitalize on the profits as other companies might be. And we've certainly benchmarked our prices against other similar organizations that are doing just energy efficiency projects. And we do tend to come out at a lower cost overall than anybody else that we've come across. And most importantly, our heart's in the right place. Our purpose is really the education of our kids and ensuring that kids are inspired by the vast range of innovations and solutions to address climate education. And so the energy efficiency piece is just the first step in an ongoing long-term journey that kids are taking from early years all the way through to the end of secondary school and beyond, to become climate literate, educated, environmentally aware young adults who understand that everybody has to be part of the solution. You can't just leave it to government or big companies or somebody else, but actually there's a vast range of really exciting things that they can be involved in. And this would be the first step in a long-term engagement project around both education and sustainability.
Fantastic. Well, I think you've answered all the questions for now. And thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. And what we will do is, if there are any further questions from head teachers that are watching this short webinar, we will be sharing this online and putting this out. We'll email this to all the schools that have inquired. And if there are any further questions that you have for our ERA experts, it's the Energy Reduction Advisory, Jason, Ivor, we're going to be speaking with Professor Susan Crumdyke, Jan Parnell, who was the Director of Education and Children for Hammersmith and Fulham, Sally Brooks, one of the head teachers in Hammersmith and Fulham, who is embarking on a large-scale energy reduction project, and also speaking to Professor Susan Crumdyke up at Heriot-Watt University, who's been doing an incredible energy reduction pilot in a few schools in the Highlands and Islands. So we've got loads of juicy information for you. Please don't think that this is a bind. This is extremely exciting. We've got the best. We've got individuals and teams that have actually delivered this and are delivering this on the ground. You want to be with the crew who know their stuff. And that's who we're bringing to you. So Jason, Ivor, thank you very, very much for joining us. And we will probably have more questions for you. So you may just have to join us again soon.
That's
Be a pleasure.
fine.
That's been fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Really illuminating. Really, just because I think this is a question that we're all thinking, oh, what do we do? We've got 10 grand or 15 grand. Well, what do we do with it? And it is a step-by-step process. It's just like delivering climate education. It's not something that you just suddenly go and do a carbon literacy training course and we can teach climate education. It doesn't work that way. If you don't have the foundations in place, everything falls in with it like a pack of cards. Is there anything you want to close with, Jason?
No, I just think climate change is here, it's happening, but there are things you can do to make a big impact. And as I said, it's all driven by the pupils. They're tomorrow's future, and they really want to know what they're doing and how you're helping to combat climate change.
Thanks, thank you, Jason. And you, Ivor? Last words.
Just take action, go for it, and make sure you're doing it from the basis of proper information before you make decisions. Otherwise, you're just stabbing in the dark.
Absolutely right. So we're not going to be stabbing in the dark. We are ERA, the Energy Reduction Advisory, and we will be seeing you all at the next webinar and see you on the other side. Bye then. Have a good day.